Right, good morning, people. Bob here, back once again. Bitcoin breakdown incoming. Let's get right down to it. Start out with the daily chart here. I figured let's just go ahead and get this out of the way. Yeah, we ended up putting in a bit of a bullish fake out up to here yesterday. This is actually a nice candle throughout most of the day, and then, I mean, it was green almost the entirety of it, and then all of a sudden it just died in the last couple hours of the day yesterday. This guy right here, this is where the rubber meets the road, really. Need to hold this up here. Need to hold this. And again, we talked about it. If it comes down here and it wicks down and then comes back up and gains support, okay. But otherwise, this becomes problematic here. And you can see even as I'm talking, it's in fairly up there. Flipping to a red candle already. I mean, this, when you get these kind of downside moves, until you get that downside move that kind of wicks out, it's difficult to get a reversal of any kind. Like here, we had a big wick, and then it kind of bounced back and forth, up and then back down. It eventually did reverse. Same concept here. I mean, right now, we've got all these big upside wicks. Really, we need this one to turn into a big downside wick, or it's just going to probably slow crawl its way out of here. I've been talked about this maybe yesterday. I want to say it was. I mean, I've seen it before where you've got these parabolas that exist, and everything right up until the point of exiting the parabola, the way that you would expect it to exit is in play. And right now we've got everything except for the exit in play, or at least the one we want. We want this one, right? We want the one that pushes up, but you've only got so much time to make this happen, so many attempts to make it happen. Again, we got to get through this level, and was kind of hoping that maybe yesterday it might reverse course and kind of come on up here. It did not, obviously. Did have a decent day, but again, it didn't reverse course enough to push up here. Made quite a few attempts already, really. I mean, this one daily candle up there, basically 2, 3, 4, 5 daily candles that all came all the way up here at some point throughout the day. So, maybe this bearish divergence here is going to be a more significant detail than we would like for it to be. And again, I could show you kind of coming back over here where the last daily double top, and if I said bottom, I intended to say top. The last daily double top, you can see here is the one that led to another huge drawdown, right? Like this thing went from up here all the way down here. We got another daily double top basically here, 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 here. Now the question is, can this one be saved? The interesting thing is on this one, it's still holding this lower trend line right here, which, I mean, there's not really a line on the price action anymore that really directly coincides with it. I guess you could kind of draw one kind of cutting through this right here. That was a bit of a bearish fake out. So, I mean, but again, double top, big drawdown. What's coming here? Stochastic RSI is still a sell. MACD histogram is preparing to turn negative. So again, there are some signs that this thing is ready to pull down a little bit here. Let's zoom it on the weekly and just take a look at that again. Again, I'd like to typically clean this one up a little bit just so you can kind of see it, but I think this is sufficiently visible here. Again, we're just barely holding on to that level right now. But on the weekly, there are things that look good. MACD histogram is going the other direction. Stochastic RSI is a buy still. The RSI is kind of hit or miss on that one. It's just kind of flat at the moment. But once it gets over this level, then things get a little more interesting. Right now, we're still in bearish control on the weekly. So now it's just a matter of whether or not we can get out of bearish control, and if this thing actually does pop up here maybe at some point by the end of the week. would still love to see it happen. Again, I still think that, realistically, we could come on down here with a wick, could come on down here with the wick. Hell, I suppose it could come all the way back down here, but I don't see that as a realistic feasibility for the week for sure. Maybe on the monthly basis, but again, it just need to hold this line. And again, that's somewhere around 22,750, 22,800. And just got to hold it. Just got to do it. And no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Again, everything seems positive on the weekly, even if the daily is, not looking perfect right now. The one thing about it, and, on the stochastic, I don't know if it's nearly as big of a deal, but, we are holding this kind of bullish area above 40. So, maybe we are going to come down here, curl back up, and make one more push. And hopefully that's the case, right? I mean, hopefully that is in fact the case, and we get one more push to the upside. Because, again, otherwise this thing is still just one giant bear flag until or unless it maintains this area here. And then, if it loses the parabola, then here we go. We're coming down to the bottom of this again and potentially through it. So, again, just need the bulls to show up here, push that price. Worst case scenario, we just got to see. I mean, if the candle closed out the day like it is right now, even if it was slightly red, I'd feel pretty decent about that. Because it would at least be forming a floor right here, right? That we would have closed back-to-back days basically at the same price level. Right now, it just does not look like that's going to be the case. Let's zoom in on some short-term time frames, see if we can kind of establish what is going on here. The 4-hour, this was the excitement part yesterday. I mean, we had this nice little rounded bottom look, and even at some point, even broke above it and closed the candle basically just above this level, which could have identified a breakout and then a retest, but then it just dumped out this next 4-hour candle, and then had a nice pop here. But again, you can see here, and this is the main issue, is that now we're losing the support of all these moving averages. I doubt it's going to take very long for it to move down to here at this point, assuming it intends to. It's once it loses this level, really, this 22,620. That's where you start to look for a fairly quick downside, frankly. This is kind of shaping into a little bit of a descending triangle, which is a bearish pattern. And again, I just wouldn't be vastly surprised if we actually see this thing rock straight down into here. Maybe even down to here, kind of wick back up, and then hopefully find some support here or here. And those would be the two spots I'd be kind of looking at this point. 22.1, 21.8, 21.5, and then potentially even slightly down below that, as noted. Now this one I did drop this one's got a reverse fib on it based on this entire move, which this right here is probably realistically a bullish fake out, so I could maybe drop it here, at which point we're actually still holding the 382, and that's the bullish outlook, right? Like when we get a 382 bounce, that's as bullish as you can get. Right now we're still holding that. Now this does matter to an extent, because it dictates the levels that we're going to find down here. Notice the 618, 702, and 786. Those numbers are going to change based upon the location of this. I think probably realistically this is probably the one, because I would have found it strange to come down to a 0.5 fib level, when it was over here, and then bounce up and get the 382, reclaim that. This is much more logical as far as looking at it from my standpoint. We got the bullish fake out here, and either one works, I'd say. I mean, they're both conceptually, they're both logical. I mean, there's still levels that you would be losing or gaining. You still came up here, got rejected, whether it was a bullish fake out. This would be basically a bullish fake out here, trying to reclaim this level and then losing it. whereas here was just an outright rejection off of that level. So just depends. But yeah, I mean, just at this point, I'm pretty well anticipating that we are going to come down to here, whether that's today or tomorrow or what the case may be. But I do think that, in fact, it does get bought up, extreme buy up here, and then ultimately goes back up. I just don't know at this point if this parabola is dead or not. On the 4-hour chart, it's you could make the argument that I've got it. Maybe right here is actually a little more perfect than where I had it. We got these couple wicks that come right down, some wicking here. This guy right here that's just like an absolute, bullet shot out of there. And then this guy here. So again, we hold this level now. Let's pretend for 1 second that this is in fact the best way to look at it, and we hold this 0.5 at 22.6 and change. Great. That means our next move potentially is back to the upside. But again, you can look at the RSI down here, and this thing is a fairly obvious descending triangle. We're barely clinging on to neutral territory. It could roll into bear control again, and if it does, this thing's gonna come down fast. So we're gonna see. I mean, there's no support left here. We've fallen below all of the moving averages on the 4-hour chart, so there is no support left until you get down to here. So again, it would be totally logical to think that this thing is in fact going to come down here or here in the probably immediate future. In fact, I mean it's certainly looking like that's feasible, logical, or otherwise. Going back to the daily chart, you can see now again that level right there, just barely hanging on. And again, you come down to 21 and change, and here you are right here at the 50 moving average, which I'm going to guess will act as, if it does come down through here, I'm going to guess this does act as support. At the very least, they're going to be buyers here, right? Within a couple of bucks of that level. And then it's just a matter of whether or not this thing, the 21 just kind of rolls on over, blocks the price action after it bounces here, and then it just rolls entirely. Or if this thing bounces here, comes back up, immediately grabs the 21 again, and then fires off. Again, that may not happen at all, right? This thing could just sit here all day, gyrate between the current level and here, and then eventually put in a candle like we talked about that looks exactly like it does right now, just at the end of the day. And then we can start to talk about heading to our upside targets again. Right now, it's looking just as likely that this thing's going to roll over. So just tough to say at the moment. Let's see what the hourly would suggest to us. Now this one doesn't have a fresh fib on it, and this one is actually not even a reverse fib. This one's just a standard fib that's based off the drop from basically 30,000 that led us to the drop all the way to 17,611. And you can see here, I mean, we've made attempts at the 702, which is where that's where you start to get concerned a little bit, right? If you're looking at upside targets, like this is where you would start to say, all right, I don't know if it's going to get through here. A 702 retracement is that spot that it's kind of make or break. A lot of times you're going to come up, you're just going to get rejected there. Sometimes it doesn't, but that's typically the area of last rejection. The 618, kind of same concept, but 618, 702, those are the ones you want to look for as far as the upside targets, and the most likely outcome being rejection at those levels. So, did have this nice breakout from the falling broadening wedge. And now we've, again, and once we got the breakout and this pop, it just rolled right on over. So, again, same concept here looking at this. I mean, you can, the fib levels are still there. They're just slightly different. But this one would suggest if we lose this like 22,780 area, which more or less lines up to the other chart. It was 22,6 and change, 22,7 and change. It's counting pennies at that point. But again, we're in significant danger of losing this level here. If and or when we do, this level would be a totally logical area to fall to, or somewhere in between, 22. Now the big thing is going to be what is this pattern really? All right. So I've been talking about it with Matt for a few days now, and it's like, all right, well, this thing looks a lot like a head and shoulder pattern, where this would be shoulder number one, head, this whole area here, Bart Simpson basically with a bump on his head, and then this side over here. Now we did get slightly above this level, which is basically where I was saying, hey, that was basically our bullish fake out there. Was getting back above this level a little bit and actually almost finding support there. But then ultimately it did the same thing. It rolled over like it looked like it was supposed to. Here's our measured move. Again, we're talking 21 and change again. And then if we want to take that a step further, this guy looks a little bit like a tiny head and shoulder here. And again, that's a negative pattern. That's bearish. And 21.9 is the measured move there. So basically, again, I'm just going to reiterate, we just need the bulls to show up. That's all we're asking. I don't think it's too much. Just defend this level, keep defending it. The assumption is that you hold a level until you actually lose it. So right now, I've got to assume until we actually lose it and close below it, that we are in fact going to hold it, but it just doesn't look, it doesn't look great. Again, you call it a head and shoulder, descending triangle over just this little section right here. However you slice it, negative patterns. But the one thing about a descending triangle is that it is a continuation pattern, and the move that came into the descending triangle would have to be down as well. So if this was the start of the descending triangle, then in reality this is just a consolidation, and this level is going to hold. However, if we say that the beginning of the descending triangle was here, then you can see clearly that was a downward move, came up, bounced off. So this would be a very logical conclusion too. Both of them could work, and that's why it's trading. It's not, if it was just it's black or white, great, but it's a ton of gray in there. Even this pattern here, when I'm talking about this head and shoulder pattern here, this was totally unexpected. I really figured we'd just kind of come down and that this would really be the extent of the move, but then the bulls just defending this level. Now it's interesting, we got the 21 coming back down here on the hourly. It's crossed over all of these levels for the most part already, and the price is still hanging on, just barely, but it's hanging on there. So there is still some feasibility the bulls defend this level, and we do take off out of here. Again, I could draw another trend line on here, and that potentially shows some level of breakout. Again, that would be the start of the downward move, or alternatively, I could look at it this way, at which point we're not far away from what would likely be some resistance again for this to get out of here. So we got a few different things we could be taking a look at, but it all starts and ends with defending this level, and I wouldn't be surprised too if we do just wick down below it, just to scare the bulls a little bit, and then reverse course pretty immediately. But again, this market being what it is, it also wouldn't vastly surprise me if we just lose that level and then crap out $1,200 over the course of a few hours just to reverse course again and fire back off to the upside. So we're gonna see. It should be very interesting. To be frank, as far as the 4 hour goes, I think I said it yesterday, I would not be opposed to this thing just wicking way down here, touching this. I don't want it to stay down there. Just touch it and then take off. And again, now we come back to this chart as a side note, and here we are. We're holding that level again. We've got the support of these shorter term moving averages. So it's just crazy. It's tough to make heads or tails of it at the moment. My mind says that this thing's going to lose this level and we're coming down here, but the chart says that may not end up being reality. So This would be something to keep a very close eye on over the course of the next several hours. After 2 4-hour red candles, it still didn't set a lower low. I mean, we wicked down, but it didn't come down below these lows here. This one's green for the moment. So, yeah, I mean, it's feasible this thing comes up here, gets rejected again. If it gets rejected here again, say it does actually pop up here, gets rejected, at that point, I don't see how it doesn't just roll over and tap down here. But, hey, who knows? Bulls might keep us alive here a little bit, so we'll see how it goes. Real short-term time frames. We'll wrap this up, and again, everything that you just saw in those other charts is right here, just on a much smaller scale. Here's that rounded bottom. Here's us in our descending triangle and or consolidation of sorts. And again, you're seeing it right here. Bulls keep defending this level. It's not setting lower lows necessarily. I mean, this is only a 15-minute chart, but you can see this low right here. These candle bodies actually closed there. None of these other candle bodies have actually closed on it. They've all been slightly higher lows. Not only that, but this is an hourly crash pattern, or a 15-minute crash pattern taking place. That's where the 21 crashes down over the 200, and then the other moving averages follow. There's only 2 more to go. We got the 80 and the 100 left to cross over. Those ones don't tend to be as extreme. It's normally this red one that causes the biggest downturn. So, feasible that this thing does in fact hold this level, on the 15-minute. It's in neutral territory. All this sideways chop, though, I mean, this you can see it on the RSI just how clearly choppy it is. It's tough to get a handle on it. But long story short, hold this level, life is good. Lose this level, and life looks very different for Bitcoin. So that's all we're looking for. It's all about this level at this point. Rubber meets the road. Let's see what you got, Bitcoin and Bitcoin bulls. All right, we appreciate y'all. Look forward to catching up tomorrow morning. Have a great day.